All right, so now that we've segmented all of our data, there's just a few steps we're going to do to clean it up before we go on to creating single subject averaging. Those steps are an ocular correction, a baseline correction, and an artifact rejection. So here we are, we just segmented into our two conditions, a go condition and no-go condition. We have all of our trials here, radio transformations, and the first thing we're going to do is an ocular correction. You have two options here. You can do independent component analysis or just ocular correction. We're going to do the second option. And you also have two options here for the method. We're just going to do Grattan and Coles. Now here you're going to have to list the eye channels that you used when you recorded. I only have one. I'm going to use channel 126. It's my vertical eye channel. You might have two, but one is okay. And I'm going to enable all of my channels. So once this is done, I'm going to go into operation infos and see how many blinks there were. Used my reference channel. All these channels were looked. 2028, and there was no blinks. Okay, so it could be. I'm going to go and check through my trials, make sure all the channels are here, to make sure that I don't see any blinks, just to make sure that's correct. I'm just going to do this really quickly. And you would be able to see a blink. It'll show up as a nice big peak. And it didn't recognize any blinks within the trials that I've segmented, and that sounds about right to me. This is pretty clean data. So next, we're going to stay on this, and we're going to go to transformations and baseline correction. This step is really easy. We're going to use a 200 millisecond pre-stimulus period, similar to what we visualized here as our baseline. And this is for ERP analyses. If you wanted to do later on do time frequency analyses, you would have to move a little farther back. I think we recommend minus 500 to minus 300 milliseconds. So that's all done. I'm going to open that. And now I'm going to do artifact rejection. Artifact rejection. So I'm going to choose automatic segment selection. They allow you to do it manually to look through all the trials by themselves, but we're just going to do automatic. And we're going to make sure that we're removing the trials instead of just marking them as bad. So here you have three options. So those are the methods. We have all the channels that we're going to apply it to, and then we have the criteria. So there's 5 different criteria you can select. We're going to just be using 2, max, min, and amplitude. So make sure that the other 3 are all not checked on. So for the max min, we're going to allow a maximal difference of 200 microvolts. And if we see a trial where that's exceeded, then we're going to mark it as bad 200 milliseconds before and after in that trial. With the amplitude, we're going to use a minimum of 100 microvolts and a maximum of 100 microvolts, and we're going to mark a similar time around that event as bad. So before we apply this criteria, we're going to go ahead and test it. And this is going to show us with the criteria we've described what percentage of our data, what amount of time of our data is going to be rejected from this criteria. So here you can see there's a list of each channels, and on the right, I'm looking at the percent of data that was removed with this criteria. So this looks really clean. The highest I see right there is 2.6%. I'm going to make sure I look at all my channels. So this was very clean. So if you saw maybe one channel had like 15, 20% of the data being removed, then what I would do is probably go and look at a few different participants. And if you saw that for a few participants in a row, there were a few channels where 20% of their data was being removed. Let's say we have 50 trials. Let's say maybe like 5 trials were being removed from a few participants. Then you would maybe want to consider making your criteria less stringent so you can keep more of those trials. And of course, you can just list this in your method section and kind of leave it up to the reviewers, I guess. So now we see artifact rejection was there. Operation infos. So this is just showing us what we already looked at, what percentage of the data is being removed. And awesome, this is of course a very clean segment, so we're good to go. So now that we've done these 3 steps, in the next video, we're going to go on to creating single subject averages.